What do you do when you fail as a leader? And not a small mistake, but a big one. The kind that hurts people, the kind that compromises your integrity, the kind that makes you question whether you're fit to lead at all. We've spent the last 2 weeks looking at David's journey, from the shepherd who led with authenticity to the fugitive who built a team in the wilderness. We've seen his courage, his character, his faithfulness. But today, we're going to look at David's darkest moment. It's the moment when he failed spectacularly, when he abused his power, he hurt innocent people, and he tried to cover it up. And what happened next reveals one of the most important truths about leadership. Great leaders aren't defined by never failing. They're defined by how they respond when they do. Hey friends, thanks for joining today on Leading with Bill. I'm Bill Martin, your personal leadership coach, and this is where biblical wisdom can transform your leadership and life. Let me take you to 2 Samuel chapter 11. David is now king. He's at the height of his power. His armies are at war. David stays behind in Jerusalem. One evening, he's walking out on his roof and he sees a beautiful woman bathing. Her name is Bathsheba. Instead of looking away, David sends for her, sleeps with her, and she becomes pregnant. Now here's where it even gets worse. Bathsheba is married to Uriah. It's one of David's mighty warriors. It's one of the loyal men who followed him in the wilderness. David panics, tries to cover it up. He brings Uriah home from the battle, hoping he'll sleep with his wife so the pregnancy can be explained. But Uriah is too honorable. He refuses to go home while his fellow soldiers are still fighting. But David does the unthinkable. He sends Uriah back to the front lines with orders to place him where the fighting is the fiercest, and then to withdraw, and Uriah does die. David takes Bathsheba as his wife, and David thinks he's gotten away with it, but he hasn't. God sends the prophet Nathan to confront David, and Nathan tells him a story. He says there were two men in a city, one rich and one poor. Now the rich man had many flocks and herds. The poor man had nothing but one little lamb, a lamb that he loved like a daughter. One day a traveler came to the rich man's house, but instead of taking from his own flock, the rich man took the poor man's lamb and served it to his guest. David was furious. He says, that man deserves to die. He must pay for that lamb 4 times because he had no pity. And Nathan looks at David and says, you are the man. Full stop here. David's cover-up is exposed. His sin is laid bare. He can't hide anymore. And here's the moment that defines David as a leader. He has 2 choices: defend himself or own it. And David says, I have sinned against the Lord. No excuses, no blame shifting, no justification, just ownership. So in this difficult story, what does this teach us about leadership and accountability? I want to share 3 critical insights. First, power without accountability leads to destruction. Now, David's failure didn't happen in a vacuum. It happened when he was at the height of his power, when he had no one around him holding him accountable, when he thought the rules just didn't apply to him. Every leader needs a Nathan, someone who will confront them, someone who will speak truth even when it's uncomfortable. And second, covering up failure makes it worse. David's initial sin was terrible, but his cover-up, manipulating Uriah, ordering his death, made it exponentially worse. Cover-up is always worse than the initial failure. Always. And third, owning your failure is the first step to restoration. When Nathan confronted David, David could have defended himself. He was the king. He had the power to silence Nathan, to actually justify his actions and to shift blame. But he didn't. He owned it. I have sinned against the Lord. Great leaders don't pretend they're perfect. They own their failures. They learn from them and rebuild trust through changed behavior. So this is a tough lesson today, but a necessary one. So how do we apply this? Lead with accountability, especially when we fail. I want to give you a 3-step framework. We're just going to refer to it as an accountable leadership. So step 1, build accountability before you need it. So ask yourself, who are the Nathans in my life? Who has permission to speak truth to me, even when it's hard to hear? Don't wait until you're in crisis to build your accountability. Surround yourself with people who will challenge you, who will ask the hard questions, and who will tell you when you're wrong. Maybe it's a mentor or a peer group. Maybe it's a trusted colleague or a friend. But make sure you have people in your life who can say, you are the man, or you are the woman, when you need to hear it. So let's clarify this. Accountability isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign of wisdom. Step 2, own your mistake quickly and completely. Now ask, when I fail, do I own it or do I defend it? Here's a simple test. When you make a mistake, what's your first instinct? Is it to explain why it wasn't really your fault, point out what others did wrong, to minimize the impact? Or is it to say, I was wrong. I'm sorry. This is on me. Owning your mistakes doesn't mean you're a bad leader. It means you're a trustworthy one. People don't expect perfection. They do expect honesty. When you fail, and you will, own it quickly. Own it completely. Don't make excuses. And step 3, rebuild trust through changed behavior. Finally, ask, what am I doing to demonstrate that I've learned and changed? Saying I'm sorry is important, but it's not enough. Trust is rebuilt through consistent, changed behavior over time. In David's failure, he wrote about in Psalm 51, a prayer of repentance that shows deep reflection and genuine change. He didn't just apologize. He allowed his failure to transform his life. Now, when you fail as a leader, don't just apologize and move on. Reflect on what led to the failure. Make changes. Demonstrate through actions and not just your words that you've learned. That's how trust is rebuilt. All right, here's your challenge for this week. And I'll be honest, this one is hard. First, identify one person who can be your Nathan. Someone you trust to speak truth to you, even when it's uncomfortable. Reach out to them this week and ask them to hold you accountable. Give them permission to challenge you. Second, think about a mistake you've made recently, maybe as a leader, maybe in a relationship, maybe in your work. Have you fully owned it? Are you still defending it or minimizing it or blaming others? If you haven't owned it, do it this week. Apologize. Take responsibility. Commit to change behavior. Now, this isn't easy, but it's what great leaders do. Here's what I want you to remember. David's greatest legacy isn't that he never failed. It's that when he did fail, he owned it. He didn't hide. He didn't defend. He didn't blame. He took full responsibility. And because of that, he's remembered not just as a king, but as a man after God's own heart. You're going to fail as a leader. That's not a question of if, but a question of when. And when that moment comes, you'll have a choice. Defend yourself or own it. Choose ownership. Choose accountability. Choose to be the kind of leader who builds trust through humility and change behavior. That's what David teaches us. That's what great leadership looks like. Friends, thanks for joining today on Leading with Bill. Remember, trust the Lord with all your heart, and we'll see you next time.